This is CGTN, China Global Television Network.
Every March, China holds its most influential NPC and CPPCC sessions. But March 2018 is like no other. New leadership, new institutions, constitutional changes, supervision, financial risk, pollution, poverty, a shared future. With China moving towards center stage of the world, President Xi Jinping offers national rejuvenation to the Chinese people. Others worry about Chinese domination. The 2018 two sessions, the National People's Congress and the Chinese People's Political Consultative Conference. What happens here will shape China and perhaps the world. We have access. We go inside. We're closer to China. Every year in Beijing in March, China holds its two sessions, the annual political meetings of the National People's Congress, China's highest legislative body, and the Chinese People's Political Consultative Conference, China's advisory body. Every year I hear tell that this year is very important, even the most important. Well, this year, the claim has more truth. The two sessions are where President Xi Jinping's New Era vision strategies, which were specified at the 19th National Congress of the Communist Party of China in October 2017, become actualized into real-world policies and programs, selection of new leaders, and institutional reforms of the Chinese government. Most deal with the challenges that China faces. We know the general categories of the challenges: slowing economic growth, financial risk and excess debt, pollution, poverty, corruption, how the party governs the country, and increasing international resistance to China's rise. But only by knowing the specific components of these general categories of the challenges can you be closer to China.
第12届全国委员会常务委员会向大19大精神
I'm pleased to be joined by Professor Wang Huiyao, Counselor of the State Council of the People's Republic of China and member of the Beijing CPPCC. Professor Wang, nice to be here with you. The two sessions coming up is an annual event in China, and every year I'm used to hearing how important it is, and it's always important. But it seems that this year is particularly important. Is that observation correct?
Yeah, you're right. I think that first of all, it's a new year of a 5 years term start. And then you have over 60%, actually over half of them are fresh faces. So they have a new component of the CPPCC. You have a more professional, more newly elected or recommended the CPPCC members attending that. And of course, also they're going to, in conjunction with the new NPC section as well, which also for the members of NPC, there's over half of them also new members. So with all those new members, I think that it represents a new, fresh blood into the two sections, two system, and then also a lot of new ideas, a lot of new people, a lot of new thinking, and of course with this new changes in the China society, and then that's really represent a lot of reflection and a lot of looking forward.
So we have a lot of new things here to put together. Absolutely, we have, yes, one, the changes in Chinese society, which is probably the biggest driver, new faces in the NPC and CPCC, and of course we are the first congresses after the 19th Party Congress of the Communist Party. So we have a lot of new directives which need to be implemented. So now that we have that, what do you think are the highlights that we should be looking towards in this session?
I think there's two sections that there's a lot of things to look for. First of all, I think we're going to look for the new thinking that put into these two sections. Of course, we had the two CPC the plenary sections, second and third, which just happened already in just a few months' time, and
which is already unusual.
Which is
the third plenum of party congresses are usually in the fall, and
that's
now
right.
we suddenly have it. People are wondering why.
Yeah. So there's a lot of new thinking. One of the things I think also there is going to be a big government structure restructuring, streamlining, structural reforms. There will probably a lot of mergers and a lot of some new consolidated government bodies. I think that's probably one of the very strong interest of the people there, because after so many years of running like this, it's time now to adjust and to reform and also to deepen the reform.
开启全面建设社会主义现
So let's talk now about the National Supervision Commissions in terms of the establishment of it's a new powerful high state organ at the highest level, reporting to the NPC the way the other major organs of the procuratorate and the court system. I mean, it's the very highest level. So how does that work? Some people are concerned that it has sort of extrajudicial rights to violate human rights. Some people are concerned they don't know how it's going to articulate with the party Central Commission for Discipline Inspection. So there's some uncertainty about how this body will work.
I think this is a very interesting, actually needs to be really noticed, a newly established organization, which I think China are trying to learn, this system from other as well. I mean, all the good management system. Of course, for example, in Hong Kong, we have this, there's a separate body of course, anti-corruption system. But of course, so because there's a lot of criticism in the past that the party has a discipline commission which does a lot of things on the party system, which is not in norms with the world practice. So now they have a system. They have a supervisory commission that goes after all the government officials and all the public servants. Yeah. If anything violate the law or violating the doing things wrong, then there is a make sure an organization that looks after you or runs after you. So I think that will have a great impact in China, because on the one hand, China has a market system. On the other hand, there's a government. There's a lot of criticism. There's getting too tight. Maybe that's produce a lot of corruptions. Now we have a third party now standing on the side to watch this out, and so that we will try to innovate a new system that will separate a government and market forces, so that anything wrong that can be really looked after by this supervisory committee. So I think. The thing is now we are establishing, people have a lot of expectations, but how to really structure that, how to reform that. They had some experiment, they had some pilot run on that. Right. So I hope that's going to be really to be strengthened, but also more scientifically, and also we learn all the other interesting and useful experience from other countries to really make it work.
The biggest annual political gathering in the world's most populous nation. Some topics to deliberate and discuss. A new state leadership lined up. A draft revision to the Constitution. From March the 3rd, CGTN takes you right to the heart of Beijing for a behind-the-scenes look at how 5,000 political representatives and advisors get things done, and how their decisions can have a ripple effect across the world. Join us on CGTN for an insight look into the Two Sessions 2018.
Culture Express. See the world in color.
Welcome back. I'm pleased for this segment we have one of the world's leading experts on contemporary Chinese thinking and history, Professor Rana Mitter, who's director of the China Center at Oxford University. Rana, welcome. As we are looking forward to the Lianghui, the Two Sessions this year, people say it's one of the most important ever, and perhaps for the first time they may be correct. Why is this year's Lianghui so special?
I think this is a very unusual year, Robert, because of course it's the first Lianghui after the reappointment of Xi Jinping as General Secretary of the Chinese Communist Party, and of course the ending of that first 5-year term. So I think this Lianghui is going to be looking forward to what is actually not just 1 year, but the next 5 years of an economic and political program which is relevant for the whole world. We're talking here about the rebalancing of the Chinese economy. We're talking about China's new sense of wanting to engage with the outside world. All of these are questions that a lot of people from outside will really want to know the answers to.
Okay, what are the primary challenges for China today in its domestic market?
Well, one of the things that people are really looking at now with increasing concern, not yet alarm, but I think there is a feeling that people will have to deal with it, is the question of debt. Local government debt in particular is an issue that comes up over and over again when people ask what the potential pitfalls are for the Chinese economy in the coming short-term period. And we have heard in the last 5 years a lot of promises of economic reform. I was even actually at the World Economic Forum at Davos a few weeks ago in January and heard Liu He, top economic advisor and Politburo member, on that subject. He acknowledged very openly in that forum that debt was a subject that people really were concerned about. I think people will now want to see action on that question, whether it's liquidating of assets or creating of bad banks. A whole variety of very active measures will be needed.
What do you think the dangers are for the party-state system over the next term, the next 5 years? What should they be concerned about in terms of, we know about the economy and debt, so put that aside. But from the core structure of society domestically, what would you say are the biggest concerns?
I think the biggest danger overall in an existential sense is getting the balance wrong between keeping China coherent and stable and well integrated, as of course the government and indeed the wider population want, and making sure people have room to breathe. One of the things that was very notable in terms of the last few, the years of the early 2000s, was that mechanisms were emerging in China which enabled citizens to make their views known within the system, but, you know, on issues like the environment, issues like trying to deal with new and creative ways to think about issues like healthcare or rural poverty, these sorts of issues. Citizens' input were very, very welcome at one time on these issues. There's now a sense that perhaps the party-state system is restructuring itself in a way that isn't allowing enough space to breathe for those sorts of enterprises, all of whom in many cases are, you know, patriotic citizens in a very real sense. So I think making sure that that space is allowed in the system is an absolutely key priority in terms of keeping it in an active sense of engagement.
What are some of the key markers that you're looking for?
Well, in general, the Lianghui sessions are fairly well signaled ahead of time. And in fact, the Chinese news agencies have put forward a set of agendas, which in some ways are not perhaps a huge surprise in terms of their priorities. I will be interested to see in particular, I think it's point number 4 on the list that I saw, where the anti-corruption campaign goes. If there's one thing that's been really a signature of the Xi Jinping period in power, I think it is the establishment of the Central Commission on the Inspection of Discipline and the way in which that anti-corruption mechanism has become formalized. So seeing where we get language and action on that question, I think could be very important as an indicator of where China's going to go in the next 5 years.
Triangle, circle, or both? A story can take on a whole new meaning when looked at from a different perspective. I'm Liu Xin. Join me as I seek the hidden truth, asking direct questions to get answers that are to the point. Challenge your perceptions, Monday through Friday on CGTN, and get to the point.
Culture Express. See the world in color.
壮丽篇章。
Welcome back. I'm pleased to be with Professor Huang Gang, Dean of the Institute for Contemporary Chinese Studies at Tsinghua University. Professor Hu, many people talk about, maybe more privately, about the risks that China is facing, the challenges that it has now are maybe more profound than it's been in a long time. We hear about financial risk to the system. We hear about problems with state-owned enterprises and many inconsistencies and contradictions within society. Articulate the challenges that China now faces.
我想呢，从挑战来看，中国实际上是比较符合这个挑战应战模式，就从改革开放以来一直走下来，可以说是挑战是不断的，当然我们怎么样有效的去应战，所以我们把它称之为挑战应战模式，这是第一点。第二点，从挑战的角度来看呢，能不能这么讲？我们分为两种事件，一种就是所谓的灰犀牛事件，这个是比较明确的，比如像城乡差距地区差距等等，第二种类型就是我们说的黑天鹅事件，譬如像亚洲金融危机，10年前一次，20年前一次，接着10年后又出现了国际金融危机，去有效的去识别这些危机。特别是对这种灰犀牛事件。
The Chinese government is not often accused of being weak or vacillating, but in the whole issue of state-owned enterprise reform, it seems that promises are not being kept in terms of making solutions to problems and being aggressive to solve that. And there are different voices. Certainly, international economists generally favor more liberalization. Chinese economists, frankly, seem on both sides. It's an open issue. And the government seems to be hesitant to make major decisions with state-owned enterprises. Is the indecision on the government's part an economic one because there are uncertainties, or is it a political one with different factions and interest groups protecting their own interests?
我对这个中国的国有企业给予首肯，它的改革，为什么这么讲呢？我们就以这个世界500强为例，在1990年，中国只有1家国有企业进入到世界500强，能不能这么讲？世界500强本身就是一个世界的奥运会。企业奥运会，你得有资格，是吧？到了2000年，只有9家，但是现在还有赖于他们继续练内功。这个练内功在很大程度上，就是党的19大报告所提出的基本方向，就是进行混合经济的这种方向的改革。所以我们可以看到，除了极少数的国有企业，现在就是90%以上，甚至100%是这个国有的。一个呢，就是非国有企业进入，也包括和外资企业的合作，像这个我所知道的这个中化集团。当然，真正要达到世界一流企业，还有一定的过程，因为我们对世界一流企业有3个主要标准。你必须得同时达到，第一个是不是世界500强，所以你光世界500强还不行。第二个，你是不是在同行业是世界前20名，甚至前5名。第三个，我们说的就是什么呢？就是你这个有没有自主品牌，能不能产生出世界级的品牌，我们叫做世界500强的最具价值的品牌。
I am very happy to hear your confidence about how China is dealing with its economy and dealing with its challenges, because the success of China is for the success of the whole world. I do not believe in zero-sum games. However, what I want to ask you is, in your heart of hearts, when you're away from your research and you're away from public media, what are the challenges that China faces that worries you the most? What are you most concerned about that you think China should focus on, because it's an unsolved problem? Where are the areas that gives you the most worry?
我想从挑战的角度来看，可以分成不同的类型了，经济的、政治的、社会的，包括文化的，还有包括生态的。 以及来自外部的挑战，所以我们把它称为是6个方面了。但是不管哪一种挑战啊，包括生态的挑战啊，我觉得最核心的还是来自内部的挑战。这个内部的挑战是指什么呢？对共产党，因此怎么来解决共产党内部我们说的腐败问题、不正之风的问题？因为你作为执政党，这个挑战是最大的挑战。特别是这一次又建立了国家监察委员会的这样一个体系，从中央到省到地，然后又到县这么4级。我想从这个角度来看，就有一个制度安排，能够有效的遏制我们共产党内部的腐败问题。能不能这么讲？共产党本身就存在着2种力量，一种是健康的力量，你才有资格领导中国全中国，进而实现中国共产党的3大目标：2020年的目标、2035年的目标和2050年的目标。
China faces an array of daunting challenges, and a good framework for following the 2 sessions is by tracking these challenges. Here are a few. Domestically, can the lives of the Chinese people keep pace with their rising expectations? Can financial risk, especially corporate and local debt, be controlled without impeding economic growth? Can pollution be reduced without impeding economic growth? Can oversight of state-owned enterprises be improved through mixed ownership of private and public capital? Is poverty alleviation sustainable? Although the party leads the country, it too faces its own challenges. Improving transparency, establishing checks and balances, and building institutions that are self-regulating. Internationally, what about gross imbalances of trade? How to handle Belt and Road difficulties such as debt defaults and local criticism of Chinese dominance? What to do when there's backlash against Chinese interests or influence abroad? Is China prepared to assume the responsibilities and bear the burdens of troubled regions and rogue states? These are just few of the challenges that the 2 sessions seeks to address. But challenges, as they say in Chinese, coexist with opportunities. We watch the 2 sessions for both and for new leadership and new institutions to be closer to China.
We travel across the country to gauge the most pressing issues.
We talk to the people about their greatest concerns.
And explore the changes closely watched around the world.
It's insanely not come to an end.
The ultimate power.
Not only for the channel expansion and reality.
Join us for a special coverage of China's political season
and see how the new government launches into its new era.